Hello, everyone. Welcome to Full Hands In, Full Hands Out, Black, Queer, and Still Here. I'm Caroline Rosen, president of the Tales of the Cocktail Foundation, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here with you and fortunate to be able to utilize our global platform to help uplift Black and queer voices in our community. Full Hands In, Full Hands Out is a webinar series that introduces leaders in the hospitality industry. And you are all our leaders of today and tomorrow. We've heard from so many of you about the lack of diversity in our industry and the challenges you encounter. You've also asked to make sure that we are taking the extra steps to be inclusive. Well, today is a fraction of a step. And why is it only a fraction of a step? Because we realize the gravity of what you're asking for us. And we don't believe a long-term plan can be solved in such a short amount of time. But we want to begin with discussions and amplifying voices so that the depth of your reality can be realized, and together we can all take the necessary steps towards true inclusivity. As brand advocates, you are the most important in the building of the future of our industry, and we hope to continue to learn from you. This is not just another discussion, but a pivotal moment that will help define accountability and measures of change, as well as help us face uncomfortable truths. Today, we want to hear from you, our leaders who represent us and who have longed for equality and recognition. There is tremendous strength and vulnerability in talking about your experiences, and our goal today is to create a safe space to do so, which can result in analyzing challenges. With that said, I want to thank and bring to the table today's moderator, who is not only an industry leader, a Tales of the Cocktail Foundation Grants Advisory Committee, and an activist, but also a Grey Goose ambassador, and someone that I'm lucky to call a friend. One of the things that you need to know about Chris is a transplant from New York by the way of San Francisco, is an award-winning bartender turned ambassador, advocate, and activist. Their accolades include multiple industry awards and recognitions, and has been working as a Grey Goose ambassador since 2019. Since taking on this role, they've been working closely with the multicultural and LGBTQ communities and are helping to change the conversation and how Grey Goose gets involved. They've been working tirelessly within the cocktail community to promote the message of inclusivity, especially for the POC and queer communities. They presented at Tales of the Cocktail 2019 with the first LGBTQ+ seminar in the Foundation's 15-year history. They are working more now than ever to make sure that these conversations and steps are being had. And they're driven by one of their most inspired quotes from Maya Angelou: do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better. On behalf of the Foundation, I'm honored to bring Chris to the table as we kick off today's Full Hands In. Thank you.
Sorry, guys. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
All right, awesome. Cool. So thank you all. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Caroline. She said, I am Chris Cabrera. My pronouns are they and them. I always kind of struggle with the word activist, but I think as of late, I've become comfortable with embracing that title in the new world we live in. And it's my distinct honor to introduce this amazing group of individuals to you all today. Before I introduce them, I just want to say thank you to all of you who are tuning in to watch this. First and foremost, I want to say this is a safe space, not only for myself and my panelists, but for everyone watching as well. Know that we are going to say some things in the next 15 minutes or so. They're going to make some of you uncomfortable, and that's okay. It's supposed to make you uncomfortable. We're going to be speaking our truths of how we live our lives. We'll discuss the issues, obstacles, and struggles that we face every day, not only living in society, but in this industry specifically. I've heard a lot of people say that our industry isn't diverse. Well, let me correct them right now. It is diverse, and it has been for a while. But there's been an issue within our industry, and it also mirrors society. Our diversity isn't valued the same way. Let me repeat that. Our diversity is not valued the same way. So we're here today to speak on how that affects us and the industry at large. We hope this conversation, along with many others to come, will begin to dismantle a broken system that only offers opportunity and rewards to a fraction of us. We hope that by bringing these issues to light, we can rebuild our industry to have it reflect all. Without further ado, I want to introduce you to my amazing panel. First, we'll go with Simone Mims. Simone Mims has been a friend for over a decade. She is one of the most prominent bartenders, not only on the West Coast, but in San Francisco. She's managed many bars and is now our bar consultant. Thank you so much, Simone, for being with us today. I also have Darrell Miller and Ricky Nobre in the same box. Two people that I've come to know and love here in New York. I've met them 2 years ago when I first moved here. And needless to say, I'm driven by their passion and I'm inspired by all that they do. So thank you all for being here today. We have Stephanie Simbo. She's joining us. So we're a little jealous, but that's okay. Stephanie, thank you for being here. She's the Maison Ferrand bar manager, and she's also on the Tales of the Cocktail Education Committee. Next, we have Lorenzo Cyril. Lorenzo Cyril is one of my closest and dearest friends. He is the beverage director at Chinese Tuxedo, and I'm honored that he is joining us today. Thank you, Lorenzo. And last but not least, Tiffany Brasserie. I had the pleasure of spending a few weeks in France with Tiffany last year, and we've become close friends since then. She is a bartender's bartender, a historian, and a dear friend. So this is all my panel, and I say welcome to all of you. So let's kind of get right into it. Are y'all tired?
Exhausted.
Wow.
Who wants to start that off?
I'll start off. I'm exhausted. I like I told you yesterday, this is the first time in my adult life that I'm, excited for Pride Month to be over so that I can maybe just focus on being Black. There's so many levels to all that's going on in the world and, trying to deal with it and trying to manage all the information coming in. I'm just, I take as many naps during the day as I possibly can.
How about the rest of you? I know coming into this, I know it's Pride Month and, we try to celebrate our queerness during that, but the Black Lives Matter movement, gaining this worldwide momentum. I want to know how you're all feeling about this. I know so many people have probably been reaching out to you to check in on you, to see how you're doing, ask you questions. I mean, please, I would love to hear your thoughts on that and what you've been experiencing, especially through this. Also, let's not forget we're going through a worldwide pandemic. So, Stephanie, you're on mute. Yes.
Yeah. Exhaustion is the word. The pandemic, obviously, it's something difficult mentally and physically, but on top of that, you had everything that's happening. And as I was talking to you the other day, being a Black person, you already have to navigate in a really tough world and try to protect yourself as much as you can, and self-care. And you do that when you are not under the highlight, like under the spotlight. And then suddenly, boom, like you become the Black friend of everyone. Everyone wants to learn everything and they call you. So on top of preserving your own sanity, you kind of have to also held the sanity of others, and you haven't even asked for that. So like it's not even exhaustion. I don't have a word for it.
And I mean, and Lorenzo, how about you?
I mean, just this month alone, and I think, like I said, like Ricky yesterday, speaking on just on that quick conversation, like, yeah, sure, like celebrating, Pride and, queerness, but like just also trying to process being Black as well. Like, and she, spoke poignant about being like, just like, I'm trying to just process and try to be like a Black woman. And that's real. That translates so beautifully. Like, it's just so simply stated. And it's just like trying to process that, then to move on to like what's going on within, our community.
And I've been trying, you know, personally, because I know, you know, I've been reaching out to you separately just to check in and just, you know, send you a heart emoji or just say that hello. You know, I'm under a tremendous amount of stress and work. I can't even imagine, you know, having that and plus added, you know, being Black and having to like navigate through these new waters now, you know. And I think for me, are you all worried that, you know, there's this blazing fire of like, you know, wokeness, I guess is the best way to, you know, to phrase it, you know, and it's roaring big and it's bright, but I can't help but feel, and please, I want to hear from all of you on this, you know, once everything gets back to normal, as we say, and, you know, all the bars are open and, you know, we're back doing everything, especially as a brand ambassador, I'm back full time doing what I'm doing. Do you feel that blazing fire is going to kind of be reduced to like this dim flame and almost disappear, you know, as almost a trend that we're seeing right now, but it will, are you afraid this momentum's not going to keep up?
I think that if we look at the news, just how cycles operate, you know, 2 weeks straight, it was all pandemic, and then we kind of moved into Black Lives Matter, and now things are shifting again as people start focusing on reopening, and, you know, it's now the pandemic is spreading across the West Coast for sure. A lot is losing traction, and that's more on our white counterparts in America and around the world, honestly. You know, we're Black every day, so this is our life. It's not a choice. It's, you know, every time I step out of my apartment, every time I log on to Instagram, that's just a part of who we are. It's a choice for them. A statistic came out in 2018 that said that 70% of white Americans do not have friends in other ethnic groups.
Like, 70% is a lot.
That's a lot, you know.
70% is a lot. I mean, think about what that statistic with restaurants. If you have 70% of your restaurant filled,
yeah,
you know, to break it down. I mean, that's a crazy statistic, Darrell.
And we're used to being the minority. Like when we walk into a bar, you play the game. Let's count the people of color in this room. You know,
we always do. I automatically don't feel comfortable if I'm in a space without anyone else of color, or I can't figure it out. You know, because I present that way. So I'm just like, who else here? Like, in case anything pops off, who else is gonna have my back here?
Back, right? Yeah. I mean, how do you feel about it, Tiff? I'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, it's about the same. You definitely walk in a room and check to see the back door and who's got my back. Like, I just want to see who I can connect with, whether we're obviously in the hospitality industry, so we're going to speak and be cordial, but there always is this, I won't use the word lonely, but it's just this discomfort, you know. I want to see how many others are like me, and that's down to how many women are in here, down to how many Black people are in here. Not people of color, but where are my Black people? Not so we can do some silly high five and what's up, just so we can connect and be like, yo, we here, like, and be proud that we were accepted and comfortable in the room. It's a long time coming. I think it's going to fade. I think it's going to blend in. I don't think there's going to be much change. I mean, we've been going through this as a culture for so long. I doubt that this generation is going to fix it. And just the talk of it is just not enough. So it just has to be the action. But also on our side, we have to want to do it. We have to want to be comfortable in your space. We have to want to be around you. And now things are awkward.
Just to piggyback off that, I feel even now in discussions that I've been a part of, and maybe you guys can share as well, but I feel that there's some white people, most white people, that aren't comfortable saying the word Black. You know, they're more comfortable saying words like minorities, and I don't know why the word Black has become a derogatory term, I guess. It's okay to say Black because y'all are Black, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel the first step is being able to get comfortable with the language before you're gonna introduce these these grandiose changes or come to the table with all these, not really suggestions, but, I think first and foremost, you have to get comfortable with saying words like Black and queer, because they're not derogatory terms. They're what we are. They're socially acceptable. And I feel like that's really the first step. I mean, I know walking into bars, how many of you, have, this is kind of a two-part question, so there's gonna be a lot of those, but even walking into, bars and restaurants, and like you were saying, Darrell and Ricky, and you look for people not only on, just hanging out and eating, but also working. That's one thing I always notice when I go into restaurants is, do they have any people of color, Black, Latinx, working? Do they have any queer people working? Like it's on all of us. I think it's just natural for all of us to just scope out and always know our surroundings and know how comfortable we can be. I mean, do you guys agree?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Especially with like the bar industry, there's so many spectrums of type of bar. So when you go into bars, like I was telling a friend yesterday, I will go into a higher end cocktail bar just to do some research on flavor. But it's like I walk in and it's like Darrell said before, do they belong here? Like everyone's looking at me like, are you in the right place? Or like before they know I'm industry, and then they find out that I'm industry, and then everything changes. The whole tone changes. So I mean, that being said, when you walk into a place like that and you see someone like you working there, that's who I'm going to approach. That's who I'm going to talk to first, because it's going to make me feel comfortable to be me in that space.
Definitely something that is really important for me. It was so important that I was a bartender in Europe, and I left Europe for that. I was like, I don't see myself there. I need to go somewhere else. And I ended up choosing a part of my decision to move to South Africa was guided by I needed to see more Black people in the industry, because I felt I felt so many emotions. I felt tokenized. I felt humiliated. I felt scared sometimes. I felt uncomfortable. And I was like, I can't enjoy working in an industry that I love and don't see myself. So I had to move. And I went to South Africa, which was like the worst place to choose because that's the whitest country. But yeah. But
Damn.
On that, Stephanie, I really want, I kind of direct this question straight to you. I've heard, some people from across the pond, specifically from UK, say that they don't really understand the racism here in America because it's not really part of the culture in London or in Europe. And I want to, since you've actually lived in London and South Africa, and now you live in Paris, I want to get your point of view, because what you've experienced.
Oh boy, racism in Europe is polite. Racism in Europe is subtle. Racism in Europe will be someone looking at you that you know for like years, but still telling you how formidable you speak without an accent, or listening to, I don't know, hearing some Afro-fusing music and be like, oh, can you teach me the Guaragara? I can't even do that step. Like it's just, it's all those little things, my name is Stephanie, so it's kind of a French name. So when I apply somewhere and I talk on the phone, having my white voice, and people be like, yeah, come. And then you arrive there and they're like, oh, well, oh, you're Stephanie. And I was like, yes, I am. Surprise.
And we'll be talking about that white voice later, more to come on that. But yes.
Code switching.
That's later on.
That's
but
like
yeah,
a national sport. Like code switching is a national sport. Like I think all of us in here, we're elite, like Olympian on it. You working in the industry, the way that you talk to some of your customers. If I go to some part of Paris, where I know that there would be Black people, I'll be like, yeah, brother, man, you know, like having my vernacular and everything. And then suddenly, if I go to the nice neighborhood of Paris, I'll be like, hey guys, how are you? How did you enjoy your experience and everything? Yes.
I mean, I think we've all experienced. I'd like to actually hear from Lorenzo on this. I know we talk about this often. I do it as well. I'm in Harlem, having a great time. I'm speaking my normal, you know, my slang, how I'm comfortable. You know, we're bringing it in for a hug, or you know, we're throwing the words out there, just having a good time. And then I'll go straight to Midtown to some of my other accounts, and my white voice comes on, you know, and it's you know, it kind of brings us to like, I think I want to hear how do you all do, I know you all do, and what you've experienced in it. But I think that's one of the things is we go out of our way to make our white counterparts feel comfortable with us, you know. And I'd like to hear I'd like to hear from you, Lorenzo.
I think, code switching, it's absolutely a sport. Failing at it at this point because I'm tired, and I don't think that, you know, the cadence in my voice and me being upset about things, yes, I have every right to be upset in that moment. And you telling me about this like professionalism, which is nothing but like this white construct, and it's kind of like elitist. So it's like, I want to talk to everybody the same. And sure, I mean, I code switch between my friends and, you know, my colleagues and things like that. But I'm kind of just like blurring the lines now, because it's just like, at this point, it's like, what you see is what you get, and it is what it is. And I just, it's tough.
How about you guys, Ricky, Darrell? I know you got something to say.
I mean, I kind of started in the industry in finer dining, you know. So I'm actually from England, moved to the States when I was young, but definitely familiar with, you know, European racism at its best. Growing up in Arizona, on the other hand, and starting in fine dining there was, to say the least, an experience. And you automatically learn that everything is prim and proper, and the verbiage is key. Coming to New York and still staying in that zone was rough, and you get so exhausted, and every day you're putting on a voice and a face, and you know, I have to be quite right. And I switched to clubs, and I was just like, I can't anymore. And now I'm tired, and I can't be bothered to do it anymore. I really can't. So
I totally feel it. I mean, my upbringing, I grew up in Cape Cod, so I've always code switched since I was little, because I'm at yacht clubs and sailing, like, you know, that's what I'm doing growing up. And my parents have always been very cautious of making me know that there's a way we talk at home, and there's a way we talk in front of these people. And you'll get far in life if you know how to do that. So, I mean, for me, going from there to art school in Boston, like, that's where I started bartending, like, in Boston, which we all know is a very racist city. It literally has just been part of my life forever. I'm 31 now, and like Darrell has switched to clubs and places that are more casual. I now have that luxury, and it's still sometimes hard for me to turn it off. So it's just ingrained.
And, you know, I think, you know, I would love, you know, before we move on to the next topic, I'd love to hear from you, Tiffany, being in the South. You know, you live in Atlanta. It's a whole other world in the South, as we all know. And I'd like to get, you know, how you feel about code switching. You know, is it just part of your everyday, you know?
Yeah, code switching is a part of growing up. You're taught that very young in age. You're taught how to act in front of them. You're taught how to sit in front of them. I mean, of course, you're taught to be I'm a woman, so you're taught to the etiquette of being a woman, but we're taught to speak when spoken to. We're taught to fall back and not talk back. We're taught to, not look at them a certain way because it's none of our business, or mind your business, or when you're spoken to, you make sure you speak in this tone. Since I was younger, I was told from my own community, you're talking white. And then when I'm around the whites, they're like, you talk so, and I'm like, talk so what? So There is quite an in-between with the South. I don't know what proper speaking, I didn't know it had a color, but I do know that I was raised to speak clearly, and I was taught a telephone voice very early in age, very early, so how to say hello and goodbye and take it up an octave, and how to speak. And like Stephanie said, my name, Tiffany Berrier, sounds one way, it looks one way, and then you show up and they're like, whoa, she's like, Baldwin. Yeah.
Oh, Tiffany? Is it?
But my parents told me, they gave me the name. My mother said she named me Tiffany so that I did not get a Black name, so that I could be respected differently when I got older. That's my mom's words.
And, I think, thank you for sharing that. And, I kind of want to, for my next question, I think I want to talk to you a little bit about Steph and Simone, and please, all of you, just feel free to jump in if you have something to, which I'm sure you all do. But I think, this is kind of a broad question for all of you, but I'd like Simone to answer first. Do you find that there is only room for one of us at the table? And in my experience, and I want to see it, I want to know if this is what you've gone through, even when you get a seat at the table, do you find that your opinions aren't sought out? Do you feel like you're just at the table, but it's almost like it's just something that they've given us so they can say that their team is diverse or the table is diverse, but your opinions just really aren't valued or sought out, especially when it comes to maybe things and that you're an expert in or that you're a part of, or your community. If you're having a discussion about your community that you belong to, you're still sitting there in silence while everyone speaks around you. Yeah. And I just want to, I'm gonna bring this to Simone, because I know you run so many bars and we talk about this all the time. But please, what do you think?
So first off, I want to say that, diversity and inclusion are two different things. Diversity is from a perspective, right? So if you're sitting at a table and, you have, you can say that your team is diverse, you can have 3 men, 3 women, and you consider that diversity. But inclusion is about having the ability to speak, to have your voice heard, to have your voice recognized. So we got to start there first. Oftentimes, and especially since, I started off with my career in very casual dining restaurants, and I was like, no, I want to work in fine dining. I want to learn about wine. I want to learn about really amazing food. And I would say probably 90% of the places that I've worked in, I've had a really, I've been in the industry for over 20 years. I would say that the majority of the places I was maybe one of 3 at most Black people. And, also maybe the only Black queer person. So that is, and definitely, for sure, the only Black woman. So yeah, oftentimes, the questioning is I was working at a bar, I was bartending, and, people came in and they were asking about whiskey, and I was kind of going over some of the, the different whiskeys, and this guy was like, well, how do you know so much about whiskey? I'm like, I'm a bartender in the bar. That's a requirement for us to do that. And it's always getting questioned on the knowledge, always getting tested on that wouldn't happen to my male white counterparts that might have been bartending next to me on the back bar. It's always, it's always those questions and always having to, be better. I think there's lots of room for, for a lot of people at the table. We just, it's just that a lot of times I think that, they've only let a certain amount of us in, and then it's okay, now you're the one in this area. So now everything's going to come to you. There's definitely been panels and discussions and things of that nature where I'm like, hey, by the way, I'm not the only one. Can I make you a list? Can I give you their contact information? Because there's a lot of people who you can call and ask about this. And I think, for me at this stage of my career, it's really important to not just push my career forward, but also bring up the other voices that have not been heard. It's that I think it's not necessarily my responsibility, if you will, but that's how I feel. That's one of the main reasons I wanted to live in Oakland, because I think that this is an area that has a lot of talent, a lot of brown and Black talent that don't always get recognition. And I want to be a part of this to help push those voices forward if I can use whatever platform I've established in my life to be able to do that.
That brings up a good point. And, I'm going to go to you next, Lorenzo, because we were talking about this, but it's important to note that in San Francisco, they have this accolade. It's called San Francisco Bar Stars, and they started in 2008. Unbeknown to me, in 2016, I was the first LGBTQ plus person to receive it. And the 10 years that it has been going on, it has existed. Simone was the first Black person to receive it in 2018. There are 75 alumni. 75 alumni. Only 15 of them are women. One of them is Black, and 2 of them are queer. And so to speak on what Simone is saying, at what point do you just kind of be like, I'm just kind of tired of playing the game. I'm going to go to bars and a city or, a neighborhood where I'm not the only one. I'm not the token one, and I can just feel comfortable. What Beyonce said it, she was doing this commencement address for 2020. And she said, I just opted out and went and chopped down my own tree and built my own table. And I feel all of us here at one point in our careers have done that. We all just, and Lorenzo, you spoke about there's bartenders in this and people in our industry that have been problematic, that have been charged with some pretty serious accusations and still continue to get work because they're white. And you were speaking to this the other day. Can you just, go on a little bit about it?
Yeah. I mean, it's the people are not seeking out, and just going back to having a seat. Just the bigger issue here is sure, you get that seat, but when you're sitting at the table with 9 to 10 other white people, you're outnumbered no matter what your opinion is, because unfortunately there's just the sense of to be frank, there's this sense of homogeny that is there, and your voice, even if you have a valid point, it's not going to be general consensus, and they're going to be like, and having just 1 or 2 doesn't really change the culture. It doesn't shift, things that much. And just regarding people, we keep seeing the same names over and over and over and over. And it's that's fantastic. I mean, they've definitely put in work. Some problematic, some not, but it's just you can't sit here and tell me that there's not more queer or Black talent out here. You're just not seeking it out. And it's kind of that big pink elephant in the room that no one really wants to talk about because everyone's really uncomfortable with saying Black. So, to hire Black or queer in a bar, it's just not in vogue for them, and they don't really think about it.
And thank you, Lorenzo and Ricky. I mean, you're now a new bar director of a huge spot, an amazing spot, one of my accounts in Brooklyn Freehold, and for you, now that you'll be in charge of hiring, and you're going to have this new responsibility, coming into this new role, you must of course feel some kind of empowerment. But I mean, what are your main objectives to run your program? I mean, what are the things that you want to do as bar director?
I think now for me, what's most important is when bars are back open and I'm in the position to hire. I'm lucky to have most of my staff that wants to learn are the kids of color. So I think for me, something that I should be doing is hiring from within, taking the extra time to teach them what I know so that this can continue. I can put them in positions to grow more in the company or wherever they want to go afterwards, because they might not get education, from someone that looks like them to be able to succeed like I have, luckily. So, I mean, right now for me, I'm basically the only person of color in the tier where I'm at. So like I said, promoting from within with the kids that I already have that really want to learn and hiring and looking out for people and not overlooking people that are just as qualified or maybe more qualified but don't have it on their resume because they couldn't get those positions like other people could. So
Steph, thank you, Ricky. Stephanie created an amazing program in South Africa, and I want her to speak on it a little bit because we spoke about it at great length yesterday over a couple of glasses of wine, and I want her to please, will you talk about what you were doing in South Africa?
Yeah, sure. Just to before that, about creating a seat at the table. I think that more than having a seat at the table, Black people, we had to create our own tables because those tables where we were invited weren't appropriate. Like, in a sense that they weren't really answering to our life. They weren't really, they were giving solution, not adapted to who we are. So I created Beyond Bars in South Africa to offer bar education to women formerly incarcerated. But I realized one thing. Because I was like, why you don't have more people of color in general in the hospital, in management, or in the liquor industry? And then I realized that our past, alcoholism is destroying a lot of our communities, and we have an unhealthy relationship with it. The first time I decided to become a bartender, and I said that to my mom, she was happy I got a job, but she was like, well, you work in alcohol. And this is where I started to realize that our relationship with alcohol is not good. In my family, is not good. In the community I grew up, is not good. And before putting people in position, you need to kind of deconstruct, deprogram what they've learned about it, so then you can teach them to have a healthier relationship. And this is what happened at the course. Those ladies used alcohol as a way to escape because they live such a huge amount of abuse and trauma. Alcohol was the easy way out. So we kind of had to deprogram entirely their relationship with alcohol and make them see that alcohol is not a way out. It's also an industry where you can build something on. And I think that discussion is often overlooked, is that we are in an industry that if you don't give the right tools, if you don't go to the neighborhood, if you don't teach the people, you arrive in an industry with layers of intergenerational trauma and everything, and you build on top of it, but you haven't dealt with everything that you have. And I think it's important to do that. So this is why in the program that we had in South Africa, we offered mental health support. It was really important, on top of teaching them about alcohol. Obviously, we also teach them about the decolonization of the spirits industry and the dark history linked to it, the dark history in the rum industry, the dark history of the whiskey industry, because it was important for them to not forget about history, because they would just repeat it otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Don't erase it. Teach people about it.
And thank you. I think that's, to our historian, Tiffany. And please, I want you all to feel free to jump in whenever, you want to add something. But I think, Tiffany, you've been doing a lot of history classes as of late with brands and, consumers, talking about, the history of, spirits. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, it's been nice to share the history that we know, the history that's not written down, the history that's erased. Those conversations and Blacks that were involved when you are at an account visit and you talk about a cocktail being created, or the tools that are being used, or the act that did the milling. So that's very important for me. It always has been important for me and a part of my service, but more so now I'm always about education, but not just brand education. I mean, let's get down to it, to the history, since we love talking about pre and post prohibition in America and all these different, spirits and how to work with them. Let's really talk about who worked with them and who really rolled in the barrels and who did the work and actually who served the whites. And so it's very important for me to not only share the love of alcohol, but let's dig down into the past, almost 200 years, into the ancestors who really put their hands into the dirt and made sure that the whites they drank well, and the tea was steeped, and the bourbon was, perfectly, poured and stirred, along with looking proper. And it means more to me. And when I get a chance to go out and about and speak, I talk to my own people more because I want them to be proud to do it, because serving has been uncomfortable for us for quite some time. My family hated the fact that I was going to serve. And like, what's wrong with you? Why would you do that? But there's just a homage to it and an understanding that we own this and we're really good at it. I can speak multiple languages. I know how to serve it, and I'm proud of it. So the build for me is to elevate that properly, and that's to crush them with education.
If I can, I just want to kind of tag on to that. Again, being in the service industry, my family is very much they don't get it. They're like, I don't understand why you didn't go to law school, et cetera, et cetera. But it's very interesting how, and I watch a lot of the things that Tiffany posts about the history of cocktails and spirits as it pertains to Black people. But it's so interesting how in this country, all the jobs that were, slave labor, the cooks, the bartenders, things of that nature are now professions now. But there's so few of us now that are allowed to be seen at the top levels of now professions, that so many other people are, building, their careers, building, empires on that was slave labor originally in this country. So I just find that interesting. And so, it's like, you see that, you got the chefs with the knives and the things and the tattoos on their arms, but literally, where'd you get those recipes from? I mean, especially in the South. And I lived in Atlanta for a while, and going into some Southern, quote unquote, Southern restaurants, and it's like, a white chef, but and they're like, oh yeah, this guy makes the best fried chicken. Well, where'd you get that recipe from, bro? It's in it, and not having that, that ability, or that, saying I got, and being able to recognize that history. I've just seen people, they just, people just take things and they don't understand, they don't want to give homage. And that's it's messed up. I just wanted to put that in there.
No, thank you for that. That's amazing. Ricky, Darrell, Lorenzo, do you guys have anything on this before we move on?
I mean, I would just say, especially kind of in nightclubs and places that appropriate their, colored staff to dance and be the entertainment to make money, and they kind of build their brand around it. It's an issue, and people don't really talk about it. So,
yeah, I mean, that being said, I mean, what I do is that exact thing. So all I can do is try to protect them and uplift them into positions where they don't have to do that anymore,
Amazing. How about you, Lorenzo?
Everything's been said.
I'm
just resonating with everything now. Yeah.
Good. I please, this is an open forum, so please feel comfortable. But let's move on to some. I think right now, I think between bars, brands, publications, award shows, for me, I really feel that their outreach, the way they outreach to the multicultural and LGBTQ communities, really needs to change. And I feel there's a lot of suggestions being flown and being put out there by people that aren't part of these communities, and they have all these ideas and suggestions, and they're coming and they're excited and they want us to do this and they want to do this and they want to offer us, and the community is this. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I would like to hear from all of you on this. I think what they need to do at this moment is just actively listen without waiting to respond, and ask questions. I think before you go into a community that you don't belong to or aren't a part of, before you try to interject yourself in it, I think you have to be respectful. And because, we are marginalized, you have to gain our respect to a certain point to know that you're authentic. I think authenticity, I speak of it a lot in my presentations. Authenticity is everything. And I feel that, listen and ask those communities, ask those bars what they need, and then work together and bring to the table what you can provide. But to have all these ideas, which are amazing, and please, for our white counterparts, we want you to be advocates, we want you out there, but this is new territory for you all. And so I feel really relying on the people that live it every day. Really, it's now time to listen and to ask. I'd like to hear from, what do y'all think?
I'm sorry, Chris, but if you say this, if you said ask and listen, I want to say that people, please be ready to listen and to be uncomfortable and to embrace that uncomfort, because a lot of people will come and ask, but they're not ready to not feeling comfortable anymore. So it's not that we haven't been talking. We talked. I'm sure people on the panel, you talked many times, but it's just that the people that were listening weren't ready to actually listen, because it's just that cognitive dissonance that happened in their mind, and they're like, wait a minute. The famous, but. So I'm like, yeah, come and ask me, but then be ready that I would say stuff that you won't be comfortable with.
Yes, 100 times, yes.
I mean, the very, I think that, a lot of you guys don't know me, but Chris knows me. I do, I'm from New York, and from the East Coast, and I curse a lot. And I at this stage in my life, I'm kind of fresh out of fucks. So people just I told a lot of, fresh out. People, have come to me, and I'm like, if you don't want to know the truth, don't ask me. If you don't want to know, don't ask me, because you're going to get it. I know that, we've been saying this for a while. It's not our responsibility to teach white people how to deal with these situations. But for a very select few people in my life, I was like, listen, I'm gonna tell you that you need to come ask me, especially people who work in the brand world. I was like, you need to come ask me about this, because I don't want y'all to put out some dumb shit and then I can't fuck with y'all no more. This is, I know that I'm saying it in jest, but real talk, there's a very select group of brands that I, because of their quality, because of their company policy, that I will do, seminars for. I will talk, I will them, because I really appreciate their platform on how they produce their products and the quality. And, I know that it's hard right now to put something out. It's part of the reason why it's hard for y'all to put stuff out is because you don't have enough voices around your table that, that you can draw from. That's number one. And, but yeah, you have to be open. I've had to put people in their place this last few months. That's racist. And they're like, but I didn't mean, I was like, well, it doesn't matter whether you mean it. I'm telling you, if you're asking me, I'm telling you that shit is racist, and don't do that. Oh, you gonna do it? Cool. All right. Well, I'm not fucking with you anymore. I've deleted so many people from, because I'm not up for the emotional work anymore. If you don't get it by now, if you're a grown ass adult and you don't get it by now, I have nothing left for you. I really don't. I just don't. There are too many books and podcasts and things for you to read. And you know what? If you're going to want to sit in your ignorance and be bliss, then you know what? Go with God. Real talk. So. That's it.
Yes, I love that. I love you, Simone. Love you so much. Darrell, you had something to say? You had something to add? Darrell, you had something to say?
I don't even know. Yeah. There we go. We're like still trying to figure this out. Sorry. No, I think that Simone is fully correct in the sense that, especially now, so many companies on, especially social media, because that's the best way they can access the mass conglomerations of people, is we've heard you, we're listening, we're doing our part to, learn and figure out how we can be better. Who are you listening to? Because I can tell you now, like a good friend of ours who is the manager for a hotel group in New York, like her brand put up this thing of exactly that. And I reached out to her and I said, so you're the only Black woman, the only Black person in upper management. Did they call you? She said, thank you for sending this to me. This is the first time I've ever seen it. You're not actively doing the work. You're just putting it out there to look like you're fully pandering us. And we know it. And we're brushing everybody aside because it doesn't, we're so used to it, it doesn't matter on our parts that like we've figured out our own path. But the rest of the world actually needs to understand that, again, like, actually say something and mean it. Otherwise, we're not going to get anywhere. We're fully now. This entire experience is just going to be a full waste.
Period.
And that on that, I mean, the perfect example was Congress and that damn kente cloth and the kneel. I'm like, y'all, come on, y'all showed your entire ass with that.
Did they check with anyone before that? Lorenzo and I talked about it. He couldn't even respond to me. I just texted him and he was just like ... And I was just like, and that's the thing. I feel like if you're going to have us at your table, then trust us because we're part of these communities to know what's going to work in them and what's not going to work in them. There's no point in having us at a table when you're not going to listen to us. And, it just, for me, a couple more things I want to touch on is I think I want to kind of keep it short. I want to ask all of you how you feel about this. And we talked about it, and then we'll move on. But I want to talk about award shows real quick because I feel like the James Beard Spirit Awards, 50s Top Best, things of that nature. I want to know from each and every one of you, A, do you believe in them? Do you feel like they're even for us? Why, yes or no? And then what I want to say about it before and we'll keep this short and sweet because there's a couple more things we're running out of time, but 50s Top Best. All the judges are white. Okay. It's on the brands that represent the 50s Top Best to hold them accountable for the people that are making the decisions for these awards. And why is not Stonewall, where a revolution was ignited, where it's the only bar in the world that is a national landmark, why Stonewall isn't considered one of the best bars in the world? Why it's the same bars over and over and over again, but for some reason, a bar that actually ignited a revolution that led to 50 years of changes and equal rights fights. Why isn't that ever come up into conversation? And I just want to, we'll start with you, Simone, and kind of go round robin, but please.
The criteria, and if there, if your criteria is narrow, then, of course your focus isn't going to be broad. You talk about Stonewall, look about, Twin Peaks Bar in the Castro, the first gay bar in the country to have windows. Talk about like a revolutionary, concept, being able to be in a bar and be seen from the outside. That's that was not a thing for queer people for a long time. So the criteria has to be different. And, the people who are involved with these bars are probably of a select group that a select group had, chosen that, they're buddies or they're friends or this and the other. And I understand that that's how the game works. But, as far as for me, again, coming from a more fine dining background, my dream was I really want to work in this program and I want to make it, my high thing was I wanted to get a James Beard nomination for, cocktail program. But listen, the fine dining world has completely broken my heart. And I know that, and I love fine dining. I love it. I love the pageantry of it. I love, everything about it. But I just had to come to the realization that's not something that's going to be for me, but I'm going to try to help the next person get to that place. But it really depends on your level, what you consider success right now. What I'm considering, and I've changed my view of what success is, because of my big mouth, I know that I'm probably never going to work for a brand. That's okay. I'm still out there. I'm still doing my thing. I'm okay with that. But at the same time, what I would consider success now is what I leave behind. I don't have children. I probably won't. My kids are my, the bartenders that I help bring up, what do you consider success? And I think that those award shows are great. And I think that if you get it and it helps your career and you think that that's, the pinnacle of, what you can do, for me, it's my legacy. And a lot of these, brands and award shows, y'all got to remember your legacy. And everybody gets steeped in what they're doing right now. Remember, 100 years from now, people are going to look back and I'm like, oh, y'all was fucked up. And it's real. Think about it. I mean, you can't just think about the now. You have to think about the future and your legacy and what that's going to mean, to your children, your grandchildren coming up. So that's what I have to say on it.
Appreciate you. Darrell?
Simone, before moving to South Africa, I'm a competitive person. I love sports, I love competition. I was like, that's awesome. But I had that point of view from being a European bartender. And then I reached Africa and then I was like, are we talking about how all those competition completely forget an entire continent?
There's some dope bars in Nigeria fucking it up right now, and I think they get overlooked. Especially we were talking about Ghana as well, weren't we?
Yeah, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, all those crazy places with amazing bars and amazing scenes. And the fact that you have the world 50th best bar and you don't have bars from an entire continent. An entire 54 country, not a single one represented. I'm like, I know we are not at the same level in terms of molecular cocktail and stuff because we don't have the same product. But I'm like, come on, really? It's like when you have a competition, I feel that sometimes you're asking David to fight against Goliath, but you don't give David the tools to be able to defeat Goliath. You're like, okay, cool, do world class. You're from South Africa. Half of your stuff you can't buy, but do 10 cocktails, be super fast, use tools that you've never seen in your life before, and be the best of the world. What the fuck?
Yes, to all of that, everything you just said. And thank you, Stephanie. That was fucking brilliant. Yes, and we have one more thing that before we wrap up. I'd like to hear from the rest of you, please. Lorenzo, Tiffany, Ricky, and Darrell.
Just really quick I've worked at a world 50 best bar. I've patroned a few of them, and I definitely agree with Simone regarding just the criteria, and I think that needs to shift. I think that time and again we continue to see, just to be frank, we continue to see the same cocktail circle jerk of the same people, the same things, and ultimately I think that all of these awards, they're just as corrupt as American politics. So it's kind of a joke, and there are definitely monopolies with certain companies that donate the money. And you start to see those bars infiltrate into these categories, and it's just like, oh, no fucking wonder. And a lot of these bars that are doing really amazing things just don't have a shot in hell. And I think that all of it needs to be shined a light on, and then we can go from there.
Thanks, Lorenzo. Tiffany, I'm sorry, Ricky.
Oh, okay. Yeah, basically, like, piggybacking on what Lorenzo said, that part. But I think also for me, it's like, I don't think I worked at maybe a bar or two that might even be considered maybe, you know? And I think because of that, for me, it's just like, I never really saw myself being able to get the opportunity to work somewhere that's going to get an award or like have an opportunity to even reach it, just because of like what I've had to go through to get where I am. So it's been completely over here for me. Like, if you ask me my feelings about it, I honestly don't have any, and that's a thing. Like, I don't have any because I never saw it as something that I could get or even want to achieve at this point. So I'm like indifferent about the whole thing.
Darrell?
No.
Same?
Yeah.
Nope. I just bring it up because I feel like our industry is really, a lot of bars say they don't care about these awards, and secretly they do. And you see people trying to say that they don't. But I've worked in this industry long enough to know that everyone wants to be recognized. And, a lot of bars that all of us have worked at collectively have, because of the representation, because it may be who we are, and we're not top part of that 1%, we get overlooked. And really kind of, just before we have our closing words, I want to talk about that real quick, and if you have anything to add, please do. But I want to talk about accountability, self-education, and visibility. Not only holding brands, publication, and award shows accountable for the systemic change we need to see, but it's the top 1% of our industry. You know who you are, that have, they've shown their support via social media lately, as of late. They post all these things on their social media, on their Instagram, on their Facebook. They're with us. Black Lives Matter, Black Trans Lives Matter, Justice for Breonna Taylor. They're there for it. They've shown that they want to be advocates. What's also on them, they need to use their voice, not just on social media, but they need to give their voice to empower the people in our communities to share the same opportunities that have been given to them. Not to take everything that comes their way, because it's only the select few that have everything coming their way. So next time say, hey, I actually know this really dope bartender. She's been coming up for a minute. I think she'd be great for this. I'm going to go ahead and step back, but I'd like to recommend her for it. It's on that small circle of bartenders, and y'all know who you are, to say, to lift up the next generation and to put, I hate to be so candid, but to put your money where your mouth is, and say, it is money, and we do, you all do get offered money to do these things, but it's kind of, you want to be advocates. This is one way to be an advocate, is to do this, is to use your voice and give opportunities to others who wouldn't otherwise have it, and, in saying that, this is, we unfortunately, we could talk about all of this for hours and hours, but I want to personally, let you, well, first of all, I want to let you all kind of close out with a few words, whatever you would like to say on what I just said, and closing out the conversation. Simone?
First and foremost, I'm really happy to be on this call, in this seminar with all of these people. I've never met any of y'all, but I cannot wait for us to all sit around and have a drink together at some, event in the future. I'm really, really excited about that. I'm so excited that this is happening. I'm also, I'm worried that, the momentum is going to shift, but I also, while they're listening, I'm going to just say whatever the fuck I'm going to say. And you know what? I'm happy that they're listening now. Because 2 weeks from now, they might not care. So use your voice as much as possible for our white allies out there. We need allies, not saviors. So keep that in mind. And, and that's the thing. I don't need you to save me. I just need you, if you want to help, let me tell you how you can help. And that's pretty much it. I literally just Googled how not to be a racist and so many things came up. So if you have questions, the internet is there for you as well. Not just your one Black friend. So just want to put that out there as well. Okay.
Thanks, Simone. I love you so much. Always my sister. Stephanie.
What I would like for people to do is to look around them and see what kind of people are in their entourage. Like, who do you hang out with? Who do you talk to? And if they all look like you might want to step out of that comfort zone and reach out to people that doesn't look like you and actually listen to them. Listen to those people. Do not give space to then cannibalize the space, or yes, indeed, we don't need saving. And what I would love, for example, I love wine. I'm French, but yeah, I love wine. And I realized that I've never seen in my neighborhood, like I grew up like in a tough neighborhood and stuff. I've never seen wine outreach program in my neighborhood ever. Like I discovered wine when I went to study in a fancy school in Bordeaux. And I'm like, that would have been amazing. So start thinking about going to places that you don't usually go and reaching people that you don't usually talk to. Look around you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Lorenzo?
This has been great. I am really appreciative of everybody and being on this panel with everyone. That being said, I don't want your black boxes on your social media. I do not want your well wishes. What I want for you is to hire Black people, educate Black people. We're here. It's not because the industry is lacking in that. You're just not broadening your scope. Dismantle the cocktail circle jerk. I continue to say that, and I will forever say that because it continues to be the same people. And when we talk about listening, actively listening, there's a difference between listening and actually engaging and understanding and like comprehension of what we're saying and how you can be a part of it. And really quick, I saw one question that kind of like caught my eye like through the feed, and it was something about like, what does that look like as far as like dismantling like how the structures and criteria for awards? Well, it starts from the top down. So you have to look at that board of people or that panel of people who are judging this, and they're all fucking white. It has to change. That's step one. And then, obviously then you can work from there. But when you look at that and it's just, a bunch of like whole milk at the table, nothing's going to change.
Lorenzo, love you so much. Ricky and
I love us.
whole milk. I'm going to use that again. Ricky and Darrell.
I want to piggyback on what Simone said about doing your Googles right now is very important because we're tired. We're always tired, especially as a Black woman already to begin with, everything else to the side. I've always been exhausted. I have to work twice as hard as my white counterparts to get even close to where they are. So think about that when you open your mouth or you fix your fingers to type me a question about what's going on right now. Like, thank you for reaching out. Yes, I'm exhausted. Do I want to explain this to you? Probably not right now. You want to know how I find things out to myself? You know what? Like, the one thing for me that I want people to understand, I want to travel somewhere. I have to Google before I go there, are they racist? So can you please do your Googles in the other way of thinking about how exhausted we are?
Yes.
To say, is it something I should ask? Is it something I should know? Like my friends are watching movies right now. They're doing the research, they're reading the books, and I'm so proud of them because I didn't have to tell them to do that. But I think that goes a long way. And all that being said, I can't wait to meet. Stephanie and Simone, I have not met you, so thank you for doing this with us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Ricky. Darrell?
Chris, thanks for having us, and Tails as well, putting this all together. It's a moment. Everyone's putting a spotlight on it. We get it. But what are you actually doing? To the beverage directors who are not supporting Black liquor brands, to the distributor companies who are not pushing Black-owned wineries or beer companies, to the cafes that are not buying from Black roasters. We are there. We are here, and we need the attention, and we need that. But that money brings back life to the Black community, and that will help push us further as well. So, it's not just what bartenders can we promote or whatever. Our industry has a lot of money and a lot of clout behind it, and it's about where you're putting those dollars.
Thank you. And unfortunately, Tiffany lost connection. I'm just going to speak for her. She said to use your platform, take a seat out of your comfort and adjust and understand the Black community. Hire Black staff. Educate. Start listening, become active. And on that, I have a few words before I let you all go. We've spoken today on some issues that weren't familiar to everyone watching, but these are issues and struggles we face every day. Hopefully through this conversation and many more to come within not only our society, but within our industry, we will really begin to see a systemic change in the way things are done. As Lorenzo said, from the top down. It's always going to start with our leaders and the people that represent us and the brands with financial influences and the publications that give us platform for visibility. It trickles down to the rest of the industry. But we all need to hold ourselves accountable. We all need to realize that there's more of us out there and that diversity is undervalued. We are here, and there are plenty of us that are hungry to succeed. And all we're asking is to have the same opportunities, like I said at the beginning of the conversation, that are only allotted to the small fraction of this industry. So with that, I want to thank you all out there for joining us today. And I hope you walk away feeling a little more enlightened and a little bit more aware of what this industry has to offer as far as diversity, inclusion, and the people who represent it. Now, I want to personally thank my panel, Lorenzo, Stephanie, Tiffany, Darrell, Ricky, and Simone. Thank you all for bringing your struggles, your heartache, and your emotional labor to the conversation today, and for really speaking about things, that you go through instead of what we always do, sweeping them under the rug and dealing them with our own. Thank you for your strength and bravery. You are all not only my dear friends, but y'all are my heroes, and I love all of you. And as many of y'all know, when I wrap up a presentation or discussion, I always like to end on a positive note or leave you with a quote. And I'd like to do both today. This last week at Spirit Forward, I quoted Raquel Willis, who I had the privilege of seeing at a Black Trans Lives Matter march. She said, "We are a leaderful movement." And I will keep saying that because we are a leaderful movement. There are plenty of us here in this industry who are willing to do the work, who are willing to fight for the ones who don't have a voice, and who are willing to give opportunities to those other than the 1% that always get chosen. So I'm here for that. And I'm here to say that those leaders exist. They're all right in front of you right now. So it's about time we take a good look and realize the truth, accept it, and move forward and try to create, I know it sounds, a little utopian, but a beautiful new chapter in our history. As James Baldwin once said, "The place in which I fit will not exist until I make it." So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you all.